Donald Trump says he will need just 2 minutes to understand whether Vladimir Putin is ready for a real deal to end the war in Ukraine. You are watching Channel 24, I'm Sofia Nazarenko, and today we'll talk about the meeting in Alaska, Putin's demands and negotiations without President Zelenskyy, with Anton Penkovski, an American affairs expert and advisor to Euro-Atlantic Affairs Agency. Anton, thank you for joining us and welcome to the studio.
Well, Sophia, it's a pleasure to see you again, and thank you for inviting.
Probably the biggest question right now is about the planned Trump-Putin meeting in Alaska. Why do you think it came together so quickly, and do you ever get the feeling it might fall apart at the last minute?
Well, first of all, I won't call it kind of the fastest arrangement in U.S. foreign policy, because we all know that Donald Trump promised to end this war for like 24 hours after his inauguration. And overall, within last half year or so, he was constantly talking about some kind of a peace deal he had in his mind, plus arranging some meeting with Vladimir Putin and Vladimir Zelenskyy in order to get some negotiations going at a certain level, but obviously to become like the peacemaker and probably to get the Nobel Peace Prize he really wants. So answering to your question, why it came so fast? I honestly think that both sides, meaning the Kremlin and the United States, came to a certain level of understanding and probably went through some confidence-building measures within the last 6 months, which allowed them to think that this announced meeting in Alaska would not end up with any kind of scandal. So it will be something either neutral or at least slightly positive. Otherwise, both sides, Kremlin and the White House, wouldn't agree to this meeting at all, not only talking that fast. So most probably, both sides have something common in mind and at a certain level understand each other well.
But do you think this meeting could just be cancelled at the last moment, or it's impossible?
Well, I definitely think that it could be possible, even like last minute, because first of all, as I said, it's a matter of reputation. First of all, for Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. So any provocation or public statement made on the eve of this meeting could cause serious reputation damage and obviously could make this meeting cancelled. However, I really think that especially the US diplomacy put a lot of effort in making this thing happen at all. So I'm at least sure that they would prevent any events that I've listed above, and plus would very carefully plan the upcoming steps. The thing that could possibly ruin those arrangements are obviously the actions from the Ukrainian administration and the European leaders who are obviously concerned about what's going on and Trump's diplomacy.
Well, about Europeans, we will talk a bit later, but talking about US diplomacy, in the past few days, there has been a lot of talk about US Special Envoy Witkoff's visit to Moscow and suggestions that he misunderstood Putin's ceasefire demands in Ukraine. Do you think the US government truly gets that Putin is less focused on territorial control and more on geopolitical influence in the region?
Well, first of all, we need to take a closer look at Steve Witkoff's portfolio and his role in current House of Cards, if we may call it so, in Washington, D.C. So basically, it's one of the top diplomats, top negotiators in Trump's administration. If we formally look at his role as a special envoy, it's very high hierarchy role, something at the level of Assistant Secretary of State, who officially should report to the Secretary of State. But we basically all know that Steve Witkoff reports directly to Donald Trump, and he's one of the people who he personally trusts. Second is that he's basically a special envoy to the Middle East, plus he is a special envoy on the question of the Iranian nuclear program, whether it still exists or not, we don't know. And he's been to Moscow already several times, and it seems like, he's pretty welcome there in Moscow, and Moscow officials agree to talk to him, and at least some kind of neutral feelings or even a sympathy towards Witkoff personally. We don't know why, but still, as we see it as a fact. And more unofficially, like psychologically wise, Donald Trump believes that he is a genius negotiator. We heard it multiple times from him as he commented about himself as a perfect negotiator who can end all the world wars in the world just through negotiations there in the White House. And allowing Steve Witkoff to take this very serious assignment and even the role of negotiation, the most difficult conflict nowadays, probably illustrate us the level of trust Trump has towards Steve Witkoff. So basically, it is the person that Trump personally trusts very much. Speaking of those rumors or comments that Putin was misunderstood or misspoken or anything like that, I would assume that it was caused most of all by the public statements of the US administrations. And first of all, it was Trump who started talking about the details of the design of the peace plan he has in mind. I remind you that it was in the end of the last week when President of Azerbaijan and Armenian Prime Minister were signing the peace agreement there in Washington, and Trump started to disclose the details of the peace plan he had in mind. So Moscow saw that it went public and probably started to play their own game and talking about increasing their stocks there, changing probably what was already discussed before, probably manipulating the public opinion and seeing whatever Trump or his officials wouldn't respond to that. However, I think that at the moment when both Kremlin and the White House announced this meeting, they already had the draft plan, at least from the White House side, already kind of drafted, prepared, agreed on at least like 75%, and definitely making sure that on most of this stuff, Russia would at least stay neutral or even agree on.
Well, don't you think the US administration is painting itself into a corner by letting Putin sit at that table as an equal and even call the shots?
Oh, it's a very tough question. And as we've seen, like even last month when top US officials were taking shots with Alexander Lukashenko, the authoritarian regime of whose the U.S. government is condemning for 30 years now. We see that the United States government, at least at the certain level and at this stage, has become very pragmatic. And for the plans they have in mind, they might go to certain very unpopular steps to achieve some greater achievements and some greater good they have in mind. Most probably, which is connected to the U.S. economy and the world trade, and I wouldn't even rule out the possibility that the United States are now closely looking at the possible trade deals with Russia as a next step, because that's something that Donald Trump several times mentioned before, saying that it would be good to even trade with Russia. So most probably he, in his economy plan about the United States, have in mind that the U.S. economy might benefit from trading with Russia.
But talking about trade, how close do you think we are to that scenario when Russia and the US could have any trade deals what they want?
Well, it is important to outline that a certain level of trade is still ongoing. There are some sort of rare earth materials trade ongoing between Russia and the United States, titanium, at least, if I'm not mistaken, and nuclear materials, obviously, like uranium. So some level of trade still is ongoing. What we might expect is the trade related to the energy, like gas and oil, obviously. But what we heard from Donald Trump and what probably concerns him is the Arctics. And probably the United States, especially, you remember those talks Trump had about his kind of land interests in Iceland. Might be some echo of his larger plans in Arctic, and Russia might be included in this map overall. Plus, what we must keep in mind are the factors of the European Union. So the energy trade Russia still have with European Union, and definitely what Trump would want to change and would like to supply more energy to the European Union, but still he will not rule out some Russia's participation on this market. But the thing that we definitely know now from official documents from the White House and Pentagon is that China is the is the enemy, if I may call it so, number one from the United States and this Indo-Pacific region is in optics of Washington D.C. as the primarily target and the number one priority, and definitely not what's going on now in Europe in general and Eastern Europe in particular. So to give a short answer, I would not rule out that Trump has in mind some larger trade deals with Russia as next step or two steps ahead, but only if Trump's ego would be pleased with how it goes with Ukraine, but because we all know that Trump has very big, very strong ego, and he very much likes when the world leaders pay a lot of respect towards him.
Yesterday I spoke with Peter Dickinson from the Atlantic Council. According to him, Putin wants to use this meeting to buy time and prevent the US from imposing sanctions on Russia. Do you agree with this statement?
Well, obviously, and I would even say that the last 6 months or so since Trump's inauguration are kind of a good illustration of such a strategy of Kremlin, because basically what they did, they were buying times with continuing some level of negotiations, both with American officials on their bilateral agenda. I would remind you that there was two almost parallel tracks that were not interlinked, or at least not directly interlinked, with U.S.-Russia policy. So the one that was solely concentrated on their bilateral trade and diplomacy agenda went until June, I believe, in Istanbul, Turkey, where they were kind of very fruitful, I would say, and achieved a lot of success in restoring certain diplomatic level in both capitals. And it is very important to pay attention on the fact that it went very fast and very successful, which is not always the case in world diplomacy, which is, as any other bureaucracy, is pretty slow. But the other one, the second track, that was specifically related to the Russia's war in Ukraine, was very slow and not very much productive, despite really lots of efforts from U.S. Department of State and the White House. And it really seems like Russia was buying time to gather more resources on the front line, and probably advance more on the territory of Ukraine, and basically take more territory of Ukraine for further crimes and further things they naturally do.
And when we now say that Putin is buying time, what exactly is he aiming for? Is it mainly economic interests, as, for example, with the US and sanctions, or are there other reasons, for example, military reasons behind it now?
It's a very difficult question to answer, because of something obvious, something on the surface we can name right away, is that Russia was buying time for further military advance to capture some more territory of Ukraine. There was kind of counterintuitive, counter-logic events there, but they were slowly advancing on the territory of Ukraine, and definitely they were buying time for it. A second one, and that's the thing we need to pay probably more attention to, is Russia-China relations. And we saw some unfortunate synchronization and probably more involvement of China within last 12 months. So we might say that Russia and China are more synchronizing and becoming tighter alliance of two states, and it is something that must be very concerning for the U.S. policy, as we know their stance towards China. But after all, we saw that the lack of support from the United States for Ukraine, and definitely the cut of physical kind of material support, as well as some shortages with intelligence information provision, were very unpleasant hits for Ukraine nowadays. And unfortunately, I must say that European Union is not that fast in providing resources for Ukraine, and European Union would need some more time to advance their capabilities in supporting Ukraine, both kind of in logistics and physical infrastructure. Nowadays, it's not that good to allow Ukraine to effectively defend itself. Meanwhile, Russia was advancing and improving their machinery, their industry, as we saw their reports about how they are advancing their drone manufacturing, and probably this time that Putin bought from Trump in these endless negotiations within last 6 months were to improve their manufacturing and industry to create those weapons that are now killing Ukrainian civilians and soldiers.
Ukraine and ending Russia's war are expected to be the main topics of these talks in Alaska. Yet neither Ukraine nor European allies of Ukraine are involved. And what does that say? And how dangerous is it when Trump and Putin are making deals about Ukraine behind its back?
I wouldn't say that I'm 100% sure that there will be any deals there. I strongly believe that this particular event is some kind of a step forward from both Trump and Putin in their confidence-building measures, and most probably they might arrange and might synchronize their worldview, their political agenda, their view on China, Arctics, trade, European Union, etc. But I don't think that there will be some peace deal signed without Vladimir Zelenskyy. After all, it is basically impossible to sign something without participation of the Ukrainian leader. However, it is something very alarming that Trump starts with Vladimir Putin now, probably trying to convince him or restore a certain level of trust, the trust they probably had during the first Trump's term back then. But nowadays, the level of US-Russia relations are extremely low, and probably those two feel certain need to restore the level of understanding between each other. However, I would say that Trump didn't rule out that next meeting might involve Vladimir Zelenskyy, but I would specifically point out and underscore the tone the American president used when he spoke about Vladimir Zelenskyy, which is somehow alarming to me, because he said that Vladimir Zelenskyy was there for 3 years, so how many years he said, and nothing happened. And we also heard that Vladimir Zelenskyy is not ready to sign any peace deal, but he's working on it. I'm almost quoting President Trump. And this tone sounds very alarming to me. It seems like he puts more expectations, more pressure, and more homework, I would say, for Vladimir Zelenskyy to do to make the thing that Trump has in mind happen. I'm not saying that it would be fair or the design of those peace deal that Trump has in mind is ideal, but at least it is something Trump now is pushing for, and I don't really think that Ukrainian leader has a chance now to ask Donald Trump to step out and do not be involved in these negotiations anymore, since Ukraine invited Donald Trump to be this peacemaker. Probably, well, it was the golden ticket for Donald Trump, and he will not step out and will push for the agenda and push for the design he has in mind, even if it would be unpleasant for Ukraine. But meanwhile, I would underscore that all three, President Trump, his vice presidents, President Vance, and the Secretary of State Rubio, all three said that the design they have in mind would be unpleasant for both sides. So they have in mind in those land swaps they've mentioned that it would be unpleasant, probably painful for both sides, for Russia and Ukraine. But we don't have many details now about particular details to analyze right now.
U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said that Putin wouldn't have agreed to the meeting without feeling some pressure. And now we are talking about the pressure which is put on the president of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelenskyy. Do you think Putin is really feeling that pressure, considering his position has only strengthened since Putin came into the office?
I wouldn't rule out. Those sanctions, the U.S. administration and American legislator have in mind those tariffs, like 100% tariff or 500% tariffs that were mentioned before. And this sanctions legislation that Lindsey Graham had in mind and was pushing for, it is something that would be extremely painful for Russia's economy. However, it's been quite a while, like more than half a year, and we don't see those sanctions on the table right now. And Lindsey Graham, I've mentioned before, said that just last week that while playing golf with Donald Trump, Trump specifically asked him to wait for some time, and some kind of a peace deal is almost gonna happen quite soon. So the sanctions, the restrictive measures, the U.S. government have in their arsenal would be very painful for Russian economy. However, Donald Trump seems like he's not ready yet to implement such a striking actions. So most probably Putin sees this danger for his economy, for his allies, and at least he's ready to start talking about certain design of peace deal, because before those ultimatums, there were no such a thing, and no such talks about bilateral meeting between Russian president and Donald Trump. The last thing I'd like to highlight here is that since the event is happening on the American soil, it is something quite unusual for a Russian leader to visit other countries, the United States for sure. So it seems like Vladimir Putin has certain level of confidence, first of all, about his own security, that he agreed to go there, first of all.
Anton, thank you so much for this fascinating conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting.
Friends, drop your thoughts in the comments. What do you think about the Putin-Trump meeting, and do you believe Putin will agree to a ceasefire?